Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to be making gingerbread cookies. This is an annual tradition in my home. You're going to start with 1 stick of butter. I use salted bluebonnet sticks. I don't use unsalted butter for my baking. I know a lot of people do. If you use unsalted butter, you may add salt to the recipe. Otherwise, do not add additional salt. After creaming 1 stick or half a cup of butter, you want to next add 1/2 cup of dark brown sugar or light brown sugar of your choice. I always use light brown sugar. After you add the brown sugar, you want to add 1/2 cup of molasses. Now I have a tip about this. Molasses sells out fast in the stores in my area, so I try to buy it ahead of time, like somewhere between August and October, and it keeps for a long time. The molasses I bought last year that I did not use, that was not opened, it's good through 2027, and the one I bought this year I will put up for future years, and it's good through 2029. But trust me when I say it sells out. There have been years in the past where I could not find molasses and I could not make my gingerbread cookies, so now I always have an ample supply of it. So now I'm just going to go ahead and mix all of this together. Next, add 1 egg, and if you did use unsalted butter, you're going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of salt here. If you did not use salted butter, you do not need to add the salt. Then you're going to mix those ingredients thoroughly. Next, add 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 2 teaspoons of ground ginger, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, 1/2 teaspoon of ground cloves, and then mix all of these ingredients together. Next, you're going to add 2 1/4 cups of flour. Once mixed thoroughly, now you're going to chill until the dough is cold. Now that your dough is thoroughly chilled, preheat your oven to 325 degrees and line your cookie sheet with parchment paper. Next, you want to flour your surface and roll your rolling pin through it just to coat it with flour. Typically, I use a gingerbread cookie cutout, but this year I thought I would do a snowman. That's if I can find a snowman. I'd even take a tree at this point. I thought I found a tree with this, but I think it's a leaf. I do have a snowman. It's brand new. I've never used it. Okay, so now I have the dough on the floured surface. I have my rolling pin nice and floured. And I'm going to add just a tad bit of flour onto the actual dough. So now I'm going to take my rolling pin and roll out the dough. When you're rolling out dough, you want to roll it out as evenly as possible, and you want to alter sides. You want to do front and back, you want to do left and right, and when you're doing this, you don't want to flatten the dough to more than 1/4 of an inch. You don't want these cookies coming out hard after the baking process. You want to have the cookie dough at least a 1/4 inch thick or more, and I'll show you as an example in a moment here. Okay, I've gone out and cut out 2 shapes. This seems to be the perfect thickness. This one even might be a little too thin, but you definitely want it so that when it bakes, it's going to rise. If it's too thin, it won't rise enough and the cookies will be crunchy and hard. These are meant to be a soft, chewy cookie. You want to make sure the surface is really floured or the dough will stick. So at this point, I've finished cutting out shapes from the first dough ball. I have them over on my cookie sheet lined with parchment paper. And you can see I tried to maintain the same thickness for each cookie. And now I'm making a second dough ball with the leftover dough. So I just go ahead and I push all the dough together, make a second dough ball, and now I'm going to roll this one out. You want to make sure you keep flouring your rolling pin. Also, you'll see the dough starts to get cracks in it. The more you go, the more cracks you're going to get. At some point, you may not be able to use the dough anymore because if they get too many cracks in it, such as this here, it becomes too flaky and the cookies fall apart. So you just want to watch out for that. These here I cut out too thick, as you can see, so I'm just going to roll them back into the next dough ball. And I've cut out all I can from that section, so now I'm just going to roll this all back in a ball and roll it out again. This will be my third dough ball. So here I have an example of what happens when the dough gets too flaky. After I rolled out my third dough ball, you can see all the cracks in the dough. If you look here, you'll see the snowman head fell right off before I could even get it off of the granite. So now I'm going to roll that back in. This one came out fine. There are a couple little cracks in this one, but nothing significant. And the reason for this happening is because of the flour. It's kind of a double-edged sword here, because on one hand, if you don't have enough flour, this really sticky dough won't roll out well. But on the other hand, if you have too much flour, the dough starts cracking and then it's useless. So it's kind of a balance that you have to get down. It's like a really, like probably a skill even that you have to kind of learn as you make these, and over the years you get better at it. So this was my fourth dough ball, and as you can see I got 2 cutouts from it. Now I have 2 cookie sheets ready to bake. They each have 6 snowmen on them. And this last one over here is a little thicker than usual. I'm okay with that. 1 or 2 is fine. It just makes them a little bit more doughy than the other ones, but the flavor of this is really good because it's gingerbread. I made a batch of cookies the other day with a cinnamon flavored dough, and the dough itself is not very good, but this dough is actually fine on its own. So even if it's more doughy, it doesn't matter. We're gonna ice these after they come out of the oven. Of course, if you use a different size cookie cutter, you could probably get a lot more than 12 cookies. Each tray is gonna bake for 10 minutes. You can see how much the dough rose in the oven. The second tray is going in, and you can really see the difference between the ones before they cook and the ones how they puff up after they cook. I transfer the parchment paper with the cookies right onto my granite countertop because I want to stop the cooking process and I don't want to keep the cookies on the hot tray. I thought it would be fun to decorate my cookie platter with some wax paper snowflakes. First, I cut 3 long pieces of wax paper from the roll, and then I cut the whole stack of 3 in half. So I have 6 pieces total. Then I'm just taking one piece and I'm folding it into quarters, like you would like a greeting card. And then I'm going to fold it again. And I think that's good enough, so I'll start to cut from here. I went ahead and I rounded all the edges, and then I just cut some triangles out of it. Now it lines my cookie tray, and I'm going to do several more so that it's nice and full on the bottom. So that came out nice and full. And if you don't want to do the snowflakes, you can always use doilies. My hand mixer broke last night in the middle of making this video, so I had to run to Walmart and pick one up. This is just their brand Mainstays. It was like 15 bucks. And now I'm back in business, and we're going to make the icing for the cookies. First ingredient is 1/3 cup of shortening. Add 3 cups of powdered sugar. Next, add 2 tablespoons of heavy whipping cream. The final ingredient for the frosting is 1 tablespoon of pure vanilla extract. Now you're going to mix all of this together, and if it's too thick for your taste, you're going to add heavy whipping cream to your taste. So if it's too thick and you want to make it creamier or more liquidy, add some more heavy whipping cream. If not, and you like it as is, just be aware this frosting dries very quickly. This is my first spin with the hand mixer, and it's very, very dry and crumbly. So I'm definitely going to go ahead and add more heavy whipping cream. It's similar to making mashed potatoes, and you just kind of eyeball the liquid to your taste. That's what I'm just doing here. I'm just going to add in a bit more at a time until it's the consistency that I want. Now this is nice and fluffy. I did add about 2 more tablespoons of the heavy whipping cream. However, just a note here, if it's too thick, I'll show you a picture of here on the beaters. If it's too thick, you're going to have a hard time icing the cookies without breaking them. So I do suggest making this a little bit more liquidy. So I'm just adding another tablespoon. I'm just going to test it to see the spreadability. It does seem to be very smooth, creamy, easy to spread. And it's just basically lightly falling off the knife without a lot of movement. And that's what you want. See that? How that's just falling? This is about the perfect consistencies. I added roughly between 5 and 6 tablespoons of the heavy whipping cream, but I do suggest you play around with it to get your own consistency to your liking. Now we're going to ice the cookies. I'm not really decorating them in any fashion. I'm just spreading the icing over the cookie. You can see the consistency of the icing or the frosting. It's not a glaze. It is definitely meant to be a thick or thicker frosting icing consistency. And then I asked my family, and they said they would be okay with sprinkles on these cookies. Usually I don't add sprinkles because they don't like the texture, but in this case they said they would like the sprinkles. So here we have a bowl of chocolate sprinkles, and you want to make sure the bottom of the bowl is flat so that you can lay the cookies in the bowl of the sprinkles. And I'm just going to press gently. Now we have a sprinkled cookie. You can also use some crystallized sugar that they sell in the baking aisle, or you can use M&Ms. You can use a variety of things, maybe some crushed candy canes, or you could decorate these very decoratively. You could use little mini Hershey Kisses or other candies, or even chocolate chips. They also have different colored crystals that come out at this time of year. Walmart baking section, grocery store baking sections, they always seem to have different sprinkles throughout, the year. But this time of year, specifically in December, they always have more of the Christmas sprinkle selections, especially Wilton. That's a brand, you might see that at craft stores even. Now I just want to point out the thickness of this cookie. They are chewy and moist. They're not a hard, crunchy cookie. Okay, and that's what you want. You want a chewy, moist cookie. With this kind of frosting, you can layer the cookies. You can allow the frosting to dry a little bit or set it in the fridge and let it cure. But it's not a glaze, so you don't have to worry about it rubbing off or sticking to the other cookie. Sometimes I even put a layer of wax paper in between, just so that the cookies won't stick to each other. This is starting to smell a little bit like spice cake with chocolate frosting. That's what these cookies smell like. I went ahead and decorated one, and I just dipped the top of it in sprinkles, and then I added chocolate chips, and this one I left plain, just so you could see the difference. I went to a bakery one time and I spent $12 on a gingerbread cookie. It was perfectly iced and decorated. It was absolutely gorgeous. And my daughter went to bite into it and she couldn't. It was that hard. And I thought, what kind of cookie is that? So after that is when I developed a recipe that didn't come out hard as a rock. And there's nothing wrong with a hard cookie. You can always dunk it in a cup of coffee. But for my children, I wanted to make sure they were nice, soft, and chewy, and delicious. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. I hope you learned a tip or two. Thank you so much for watching my video today. Take care.